October 8, 2025. China launches 4 ballistic missiles into waters 22 miles off Taiwan. 150,000 troops mass on the mainland coast. The United States deploys 2 carrier battle groups. The world holds its breath. This is the closest we've come to war in the Pacific since 1945. The Taiwan Strait measures 110 miles at its narrowest point. 23 million people live on Taiwan. They're preparing for their first democratic presidential election. Beijing sees this as a step toward independence. Unacceptable. The People's Liberation Army receives orders: show force, intimidate voters, prevent the election if necessary. Chinese military planners designed Operation Straight Thunder 3 years earlier. The concept was simple: overwhelming firepower, rapid deployment, shock and awe before America could respond. Intelligence suggested U.S. carriers needed 96 hours to reach the region. That gave Beijing a 4-day window. 4 days to achieve facts on the ground. The missiles came first. DF-15 short-range ballistic missiles, range of 375 miles. Each carries a 1,100-pound warhead, not nuclear, but devastating against port facilities, airfields, command centers. China possessed 150 of these weapons in 1996. They fired 4 as a warning shot. Splash zones were calculated precisely, close enough to terrify, far enough to avoid actual casualties. The message was clear: we can hit you whenever we want. Taiwan's military went to full alert at 6:15 a.m. Air raid sirens wailed across Taipei. Citizens flooded grocery stores, gas stations, banks. The stock market crashed 18% in 2 hours. President Lee Teng-hui addressed the nation at 9 a.m. His voice was steady. His words were defiant. The election would proceed as scheduled. Taiwan would not be intimidated. What's your call in this situation? Type A if you'd evacuate the coast. Type B if you'd stand your ground and continue normal life. American satellites tracked the Chinese buildup for weeks. National Reconnaissance Office photos showed troop concentrations, artillery positions, amphibious assault ships loading equipment. CIA analysts briefed President Clinton daily. The assessment was grim. China was preparing for invasion, not a drill, not an exercise, the real thing. The Pentagon activated contingency plans at 4 a.m. Eastern Time. USS Independence Carrier Battle Group received orders: steam west at maximum speed, 31 knots. The carrier displaced 81,000 tons, carried 85 aircraft, F-14 Tomcats, FA-18 Hornets, EA-6B Prowlers, S-3B Vikings. This floating fortress represented American commitment to regional stability, but it was 200 miles away, 4 days at flank speed. China escalated on March 12th. They announced live fire exercises. Impact zones covered 3,400 square nautical miles. These zones bracketed Taiwan's 2 main ports: Kaohsiung in the south, Keelung in the north. Commercial shipping stopped immediately. Insurance companies canceled coverage. Taiwan's economy depended on maritime trade. Cut that lifeline, and the island would suffocate within weeks. The PLA Navy deployed 40 surface combatants, destroyers, frigates, fast attack craft. These formed a picket line 50 miles off Taiwan's west coast. Submarines lurked beneath. Type 033 Romeo-class diesel boats, old Soviet designs, but quiet in shallow water, deadly at close range. American intelligence estimated 12 submarines in the area. Could have been more. Chinese air activity intensified hourly. J-6 fighters, J-7 interceptors, Q-5 attack aircraft. They flew 200 sorties per day. Some penetrated Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Taiwan scrambled F-16s to intercept. No shots fired. But merge plots showed aircraft within visual range. Pilots reported weapon systems armed. Radar locks. The protocols preventing accidental war were tissue-thin. On March 13th, China fired 3 more missiles. These splashed down 30 miles northeast of Taiwan, closer than before. The trajectory calculations were deliberate. These warheads could have hit Taipei. The choice not to was political. For now. Taiwan's military detected the launches 90 seconds after boost phase. Not enough time to intercept. Not enough time to do anything except watch them fall. American response came swiftly. USS Nimitz Battle Group received deployment orders. This was the Navy's newest supercarrier, nuclear-powered, 97,000 tons, more capable than Independence. The Nimitz was stationed in the Persian Gulf. Distance to Taiwan, 6,800 miles. Transit time at 30 knots, 9 days. Too slow. The Pentagon ordered aerial refueling for the air wing. F-14s would fly ahead, land at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, cut response time by 4 days. Chinese state media broadcast nationalist programming 24 hours daily. Historical grievances against Taiwan, Japanese occupation, the Civil War, themes of national reunification, martial music, footage of military exercises. The population was being prepared psychologically. War was presented as inevitable, glorious, righteous. International observers recognized the propaganda playbook. This was how nations prepared for conflict. Taiwan's defense industry operated at maximum capacity. Ammunition production tripled. Coastal defense batteries received priority maintenance. The Xiongfeng 2 anti-ship missile became Taiwan's primary deterrent. Range of 75 miles, active radar homing, speed of Mach 0.85. Taiwan possessed 120 of these missiles, not enough to stop an invasion fleet, but enough to make it costly. American diplomacy worked parallel channels. Secretary of State Warren Christopher contacted Beijing directly. The message was unambiguous. Military action against Taiwan would trigger American intervention. Article 6 of the Taiwan Relations Act obligated the United States to provide defensive weapons. It didn't obligate military intervention, but Clinton made clear America would not stand aside. The risk of superpower conflict was explicitly acknowledged. What would you do commanding the Nimitz Battle Group? Comment your strategy below. On March 15th, Independence entered the Taiwan Strait. This was unprecedented. American carriers avoided the strait. Too confined, too many threats. But Washington needed to demonstrate resolve. The carrier sailed up the center line, exactly halfway between Taiwan and mainland China. International waters, legal under maritime law, but provocative beyond measure. Chinese military commanders faced a decision: engage the carrier and start a war with America, or allow this humiliation and lose face domestically. The PLA Navy shadowed Independence with 8 surface ships. Submarines trailed at depth. Fire control radars illuminated the battle group. Weapons were trained. Fingers rested on triggers, but no one fired. The institutional memory of Korean War losses restrained them. America had killed 400,000 Chinese soldiers 5 decades earlier. That lesson endured. F-14. Tomcats from Independence established combat air patrols. They flew racetrack patterns at 25,000 feet. APG-71 radars swept 115 miles. These jets detected every Chinese aircraft within range. The ROE was explicit: do not fire first, but defend yourself without hesitation. Pilots reported multiple radar locks from Chinese fighters. The electronic warfare officers jammed targeting radars. Chaff and flare dispensers were armed. Everyone understood how close they were skating to disaster. Nimitz arrived on March 19th. Now 2 carrier battle groups operated near Taiwan. Combined air wings totaled 170 aircraft. 14 surface combatants, 4 attack submarines. This represented more combat power than most nations possessed in their entire military. The message to Beijing was unmistakable. You will not invade Taiwan without going through us first. Chinese exercises continued through March 23rd. Artillery batteries fired 5,000 shells into designated ocean zones. Amphibious forces practiced beach assault. Paratroopers conducted airborne operations. State television broadcast footage continuously. The demonstrations showed capability, readiness, intent. But they did not escalate further. The presence of American carriers changed the calculus. Xi Jinping's writings later acknowledged this. The 1996 crisis taught China they needed a stronger navy before challenging America in the Pacific. Taiwan's election proceeded on March 23rd. Voter turnout reached 76%. President Lee won with 54%. The democratic process continued despite military threats, despite missile launches, despite the largest Chinese military buildup since 1949. This outcome became a defining moment. Taiwan would not be intimidated. Democracy would not be cancelled by force. American carriers remained on station through March 28th, then slowly withdrew eastward. The crisis de-escalated day by day. Chinese forces pulled back from coastal positions. Ships returned to port. Aircraft stood down. The world exhaled. War had been avoided, but the underlying tensions remained unresolved. The strategic lessons shaped both sides for decades. China accelerated military modernization, naval expansion, missile development. They would never again be deterred by American carriers. The PLA Navy commissioned 400 ships over the next 28 years, built aircraft carriers, developed anti-ship ballistic missiles. The goal was clear: deny American access to the region during future crises. The United States reinforced its commitment to Taiwan. Weapons sales increased, training programs expanded. The Taiwan Relations Act was reaffirmed repeatedly, but American policy remained deliberately ambiguous. Would the U.S. defend Taiwan militarily, or just sell weapons? Strategic ambiguity became the cornerstone of deterrence. Keep Beijing guessing, keep Taipei cautious, prevent either side from miscalculating. The crisis cost China economically. Foreign investment dropped 30% in 1996. Regional trade agreements stalled. ASEAN nations increased defense spending. The military intimidation backfired diplomatically. Taiwan gained sympathy, international support. The narrative shifted from reunification to maintaining status quo. Beijing's heavy-handed approach strengthened Taiwan's separate identity. Military analysts studied the crisis for years. War games, simulations, assessments. The consensus emerged clearly. American carrier presence prevented Chinese invasion. But carriers are vulnerable. Anti-ship missiles, submarines, air attacks. The window for American intervention was closing. Future crises might not resolve so peacefully. The balance of power was shifting. Was this crisis a successful deterrence operation or a dangerous escalation that nearly triggered war? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Technology developments since 1996 changed everything. China's DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missile entered service in 2010. This weapon can hit carriers 900 miles offshore, beyond the protection of air defense systems. The U.S. developed countermeasures, but the fundamental calculation shifted. Carriers can no longer operate near Taiwan with impunity. The geography favors the defender now. Taiwan invested heavily in asymmetric capabilities: anti-ship missiles, naval mines, coastal defense. The strategy shifted from defeating an invasion to making it prohibitively expensive. Sink enough landing ships and the invasion fails. even if mainland forces eventually prevail. The political cost of massive casualties might deter Beijing. That's the theory anyway. American military planning evolved continuously. Air-sea battle doctrine, multi-domain operations, distributed maritime operations. These concepts all address the same problem: how to operate effectively in the face of Chinese anti-access weapons. The answer involved spreading forces across larger areas, using unmanned systems, accepting higher risk. No one claimed the solutions were perfect. The Taiwan question remains unresolved. China insists reunification is inevitable. Taiwan asserts its autonomy. America maintains strategic ambiguity. This unstable equilibrium has preserved peace for 29 years since the 1996 crisis. But each side continues preparing for war. Military spending increases annually. Forces modernize. Contingency plans update. The ingredients for conflict persist. 3 factors prevented war in 1996: American military superiority, Chinese economic dependence on the West, and leadership restraint on both sides. Today, American superiority has eroded. Chinese economy has diversified. Leadership restraint cannot be assumed. The next Taiwan Strait Crisis might not resolve peacefully. That possibility drives military planning across the Pacific. The 1996 crisis demonstrated the power of credible deterrence. 2 carrier battle groups stopped an invasion without firing a shot. The willingness to use force prevented its necessity. That's deterrence theory working perfectly. But deterrence requires capability, resolve, and clear communication. Lose any element, and the system breaks down. Taiwan's strategic importance extends beyond the island itself. Control of Taiwan would give China dominance over South China Sea shipping lanes. These carry $3.4 trillion in annual trade. Japan and South Korea depend on these routes for energy imports. Taiwan also represents the first island chain, the geographic barrier containing Chinese naval expansion. Lose Taiwan, and the strategic map of the Pacific transforms completely. The semiconductor industry adds another dimension. Taiwan produces 92% of the world's most advanced chips. These power everything from smartphones to fighter jets. Losing Taiwan's production would crash the global technology sector. That economic leverage provides additional deterrence, but it also makes Taiwan more tempting as a target. The island's value increases the danger. Looking back at March 1996 reminds us how close we came to catastrophe. Missile launches, military buildups, carrier deployments. Any of these could have sparked shooting. One nervous pilot, one misunderstood order, one accident. The crisis depended on restraint from hundreds of individuals, each making correct decisions under extreme stress. We were lucky. That luck might not hold next time. The lesson from 1996 echoes through today's strategic planning. Peace requires strength, deterrence requires capability, and freedom requires vigilance. China learned they need more military power before challenging America. America learned they cannot take regional dominance for granted. Taiwan learned democracy must be defended actively. These lessons shape policies 3 decades later. Every nation watching understood the implications. Regional powers saw American commitment demonstrated clearly. Allies gained confidence. Adversaries gained caution. The crisis established precedents, tested doctrines, revealed capabilities and limitations. The 1996 Taiwan Strait Crisis became the template for understanding future conflicts. If this detailed tactical and strategic breakdown gave you new insight into one of the Cold War's final crises, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. This kind of comprehensive historical analysis requires extensive research through military archives, diplomatic records, and first-hand accounts. Your support makes this possible. What other near-miss conflicts should we analyze? The Cuban Missile Crisis? The Korean DMZ incidents? Drop your suggestions below. And if you stayed with us through this entire 20-minute deep dive, you're exactly the audience we create for. Like this video if you found it valuable. Subscribe so you never miss future analysis. Share with anyone interested in how military deterrence actually works when superpowers face off. The Taiwan question isn't resolved. Understanding how we avoided war in 1996 helps us prevent it in the future. Thanks for watching.